Have you ever stood at a crossroads, heart racing, knowing that walking away from someone could rewrite your entire story? Imagine the moment. The air thick with the scent of rain, the world hushed as if holding its breath, your footsteps echoing with purpose. This isn't just about leaving. It's about choosing yourself, a quiet revolution that Carl Jung, a master of the human psyche, saw as sacred. Walking away is an act of courage, a bold declaration to the universe that your peace, your truth, and your authentic self matter more than the comfort of the familiar. But what unfolds within you when you take that step? Let's journey through the soul's landscape, guided by Jung's wisdom, to explore the transformative power of letting go. For 37-year-old Lila Bennett, the decision came on a crisp autumn evening, sitting across from her longtime friend, Mara. The cafe's dim lights cast shadows on the table, the faint clink of cups mingling with Mara's sharp words, each one a pebble eroding Lila's confidence. Her hands, wrapped around a lukewarm mug, trembled as she realized this friendship, once a haven of shared laughter, now felt like a weight. Jung would say this was her unconscious stirring, a whisper from her soul urging her to break free. Lila's choice wasn't sudden. Months earlier, she'd unearthed a dusty box in her attic, filled with sketches from her youth, vibrant drawings of gardens and cityscapes, dreams of becoming an artist she'd buried under others' expectations. Holding those sketches, tears fell, not for lost time, but for the realization she'd let others define her worth. Walking away is never just a physical act. It's a seismic shift in your psyche, a conversation between the self you present and the self you've hidden. Lila recalled a chance encounter with Theo, a 42-year-old neighbor who'd recently left a soul-crushing corporate job to start a small bakery. Over a shared fence, one morning, the scent of fresh bread wafting between them, Theo described the freedom of kneading dough, the joy of creating something tangible. His story, warm and unpretentious, planted a seed in Lila. Jung called these moments synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that guide you toward your path. When you choose to let go, you're not just creating distance, you're carving out space for something brighter to bloom. But that space can feel daunting, a void where familiarity once stood. The days after Lila distanced herself from Mara were a tapestry of relief and unease. The absence of their daily calls, once a ritual, left a silence that felt both freeing and unsettling, like a melody missing its final note. Jung saw this emptiness as a sacred canvas, a place where the soul can rediscover itself. Lila found herself wandering to a local park, the crunch of leaves underfoot, the air sharp with the promise of winter. There, she met Iris, a 70-year-old woman feeding pigeons, her silver hair catching the sunlight. Iris shared her story. At 50, she'd left a stifling marriage, trading security for a life of writing poetry and traveling to places she'd only dreamed of. Her voice, rich with the cadence of someone who'd lived boldly, spoke of cobblestone streets in Lisbon and the thrill of open mic nights. Iris's tale reminded Lila that emptiness isn't a punishment. It's the soil where new dreams take root. But the pull to retreat is strong. Lila wrestled with guilt, wondering if she'd been too harsh, too selfish. Jung would argue this guilt was a projection, a mirror of her own fear of change. She remembered her childhood, how her father dismissed her love for drawing as a hobby, not a life. That wound, long buried, had drawn her to people like Mara, who echoed that criticism. Walking away meant facing those wounds, a process as painful as it was liberating. One evening, Lila sat at her kitchen table, a blank sketchbook before her. The pencil felt foreign in her hand, but as she drew a simple curve of a tree branch, something shifted. Jung called this a symbolic death, a letting go of old identities to make way for rebirth. In the quiet, Lila noticed glimmers of her old dreams. A flyer for an art class taped to a lamppost, a paintbrush display in a shop window. These weren't coincidences. They were signposts guiding her toward a life aligned with her soul. Your departure doesn't just change you, it sends ripples through the lives of those you leave behind. For Mara, Lila's choice was a shockwave. Her messages grew frantic, laced with guilt. How could you just cut me off? Jung would call this projection, where others cast their unacknowledged fears onto you. Mara wasn't just mourning Lila, she was confronting the mirror Lila's absence held up, reflecting her own unexamined choices. Not everyone is ready to face that truth. Some cling, manipulate, or lash out, not because of you, but because your absence forces them to see their shadows. Lila met Jasper, a 39-year-old friend, at a riverside bench, the water's gentle lap, a soothing backdrop. Jasper had recently distanced himself from a controlling sibling, a choice that left him both free and adrift. He shared how his brother's anger masked a fear of change, a story that gave Lila clarity. Mara's reaction wasn't about her worth, but about Mara's struggle with her own stagnation. The real work lies in your own reflection. Lila saw how she'd mirrored Mara's neediness in other relationships, always smoothing conflicts, sacrificing her own desires. Jung's concept of the shadow, those hidden parts of ourselves we deny, became her guide. One rainy afternoon, Lila bought a canvas on impulse. As she painted, colors swirling like emotions, she felt alive, messy but free. Walking away wasn't just about leaving Mara. It was about breaking the cycle of self-betrayal, a step toward a life where her voice mattered. As Lila embraced her truth, something magical unfolded. She joined an art class, her fingers brushing against soft charcoal, the studio's air thick with the scent of turpentine. Her classmates, dreamers, creators, wanderers, welcomed her without judgment. Jung called these connections synchronicities, proof you're aligning with your essence. These weren't just people, they were reflections of the self Lila was becoming. One classmate, Nora, 34, shared her story over tea, the cafe's warmth a contrast to the chilly evening. Nora had left a high-pressure tech job to run a community garden, trading deadlines for the earthy smell of soil. Her laughter, bright and unguarded, spoke of planting seeds with neighborhood kids, of hands dirty with purpose. Nora's tale reminded Lila that authenticity attracts what nourishes you. As weeks passed, Lila's confidence grew. She sketched in parks, her lines bolder, her heart lighter. The guilt that once haunted her faded, replaced by a clarity Jung described as alignment with the self, the deepest, most authentic part of you. This alignment wasn't just internal, it reshaped her world. Friends noticed her renewed energy, her quiet strength. Some, like Jasper, were inspired, asking how she'd found such peace. Others, uncomfortable with her change, drifted away, not with conflict, but with a natural fading, like leaves falling in autumn. The journey isn't without challenges. Lila had days of doubt, moments when Mara's words echoed, tempting her to question her choice. Jung saw these as part of the process, a reconstruction where old fears resurface before dissolving. Lila leaned into her intuition, that quiet voice guiding her toward truth. One evening, walking home under a starlit sky, she felt a surge of certainty. She was enough, just as she was. This wasn't arrogance, but a deep self-love, a recognition that her worth didn't depend on others' approval. Jung believed intuition is the unconscious guiding you toward harmony, and for Lila, it became a compass, steady even in uncertainty. As Lila lived more authentically, her world transformed. She started a small Etsy shop, selling her sketches, simple, heartfelt drawings of everyday moments. Customers left notes, touched by the emotion in her work, and Lila felt a purpose she'd never known. Jung would say this was her unconscious unfolding, revealing talents buried under years of self-doubt. New people entered her life not by chance, but by alignment. At a local art fair, she met Ezra, a 45-year-old sculptor with a gentle smile and hands rough from clay. Over shared stories of their creative journeys, their connection grew, rooted in mutual respect. These relationships, Jung argued, are the fruit of authenticity, bonds that don't demand you change, but celebrate who you are. Living authentically isn't about perfection. Lila still faced pressures, bills, expectations, the noise of a world obsessed with conformity. But she learned to set boundaries, not as walls, but as bridges to a healthier life. Jung saw boundaries as acts of integration, affirming what you value. When Mara reached out months later, Lila responded with kindness but firmness, no longer swayed by guilt. This clarity drew people who respected her, friends like Nora, who invited her to paint murals for the community garden, and Ezra, who listened without judgment. Lila's transformation rippled outward. Her courage inspired Jasper to pursue his own dreams, and Nora often said Lila's quiet strength pushed her to take risks. Jung believed authenticity creates a ripple effect, touching lives beyond your own. Lila didn't set out to change anyone, but her example, her peace, her clarity became a beacon for those ready to grow. The freedom Lila found wasn't just external. It was a deep, unshakable sense of self. She no longer needed validation because her worth came from within. Jung called this integration of the self, a harmony between your conscious and unconscious mind. Challenges didn't vanish, but they lost their power to define her. When a gallery rejected her work, Lila felt the sting but didn't spiral. She saw it as a lesson, not a verdict on her value. This shift, Jung argued, is the heart of transformation. You stop reacting to life and start responding from wisdom. Lila's days took on new meaning. A sketch capturing a child's laugh, a quiet moment with Ezra, even a rainy day spent reading. These weren't just moments, they were threads in a life woven with purpose. This journey, Jung taught, is about finding meaning in every experience, even the painful ones. Lila saw her past struggles, the friendships that drained her, the dreams she'd shelved, not as failures, but as lessons that shaped her. By choosing herself, she became a light for others. At the art fair, a young woman bought one of Lila's sketches, sharing how it reminded her of her own lost dreams. Lila listened, her heart full, knowing her story could inspire another's first step. This is the power of authenticity. It transforms not just you, but the world around you, one brave choice at a time. Now, imagine Lila years later, standing in her own small studio, the walls lined with her artwork. The space smells of paint and possibility, sunlight streaming through a wide window. She's 40 now, her hands steady as she works on a canvas, her heart at peace. But this moment wasn't inevitable. It began with that first, terrifying step away from Mara, a choice that set her free. What step are you ready to take? What truth is whispering in your heart? Share this story with someone who needs it, someone standing at their own crossroads. Your words, your courage could be the spark that changes their path. Let me know what part of this resonated with you. What decision are you ready to make? Your story matters, and together we can build a community where authenticity thrives. Keep seeking your truth and never stop walking toward the life you deserve. Embracing the ripple effect years after her first step, Lila stood at a community art festival, her booth vibrant with sketches and paintings that told her story, moments of joy, loss, and rediscovery. The air buzzed with laughter, the scent of grilled food mingling with the earthy tang of nearby gardens. At 40, Lila radiated a quiet confidence, her smile warm as she chatted with visitors. This wasn't just an event, it was a celebration of the life she'd built, a testament to the power of choosing herself. Jung would say this moment was the culmination of her alignment with the self, a life where every choice reflected her deepest truth. But Lila's journey didn't end with her own transformation. Her courage had sparked change in others, a ripple effect Jung saw as the natural outcome of authenticity. At the festival, she noticed a familiar face, Clara, a 28-year-old barista who'd attended one of Lila's art workshops. Clara, once shy and uncertain, now stood proudly by her own booth, displaying photographs of the city's hidden corners. Over a shared lemonade, Clara shared her story. Lila's encouragement had pushed her to pursue photography, a passion she'd buried under family pressures. Her voice trembled with gratitude, and Lila felt a warmth spread through her, knowing her journey had touched another's. This ripple effect wasn't limited to Clara. Lila's friend Jasper, now 42, had started a music school, inspired by her boldness. Nora's community garden had grown, thanks to Lila's murals drawing crowds. Even Ezra, her partner, credited Lila's authenticity with giving him the courage to teach sculpture classes, sharing his craft with others. Jung believed that when you live from your truth, you become a catalyst, not just for your own growth, but for the world's. Lila saw this in the festival's energy, artists, dreamers, and everyday people connecting, inspired by each other's stories. Yet, this impact came with responsibility. Lila learned to navigate the reactions her authenticity provoked. Some, like Clara, were drawn to her light, eager to grow. Others, like a former colleague who criticized her risky career change, felt threatened, their discomfort a reflection of their own unexamined choices. Jung's concept of projection helped Lila understand this. Her truth held a mirror to others, and not everyone was ready to look. She met these reactions with compassion, recognizing they weren't about her, but about the shadows others carried. One evening, as the festival wound down, Lila sat on a bench, the sky streaked with pink and gold. A young boy, maybe 10, approached, clutching a sketch pad. He'd seen her work and wanted to show her his drawings, simple but vivid scenes of his neighborhood. Lila listened, her heart full, as he spoke of wanting to be an artist. She shared a story from her own childhood, how she'd hidden her drawings until she found the courage to share them. The boy's eyes widened, and Lila knew this moment, small as it seemed, was part of the ripple effect, a seed planted in a young heart. Jung taught that authenticity aligns you with the universe's flow, creating synchronicities that amplify your impact. Lila saw this in the festival's unexpected connections. A gallery owner who offered her a solo show, a teacher who wanted her to speak to students about creativity. These weren't random. They were the universe responding to her truth. But Lila also knew this journey wasn't linear. There were still days of doubt, moments when old fears whispered. Yet she'd learned to trust her intuition, to see challenges as fertile ground for growth. Jung called this the alchemy of the psyche, where chaos becomes the raw material for transformation. As Lila packed up her booth, she reflected on the path that brought her here. The pain of leaving Mara, the fear of emptiness, the joy of rediscovery, all were necessary threads in her tapestry. She thought of Jung's words. Life isn't about avoiding suffering, but finding meaning in it. By choosing herself, Lila had not only transformed her life, but had become a light for others, proof that authenticity is a gift that keeps giving. Her story, like the sketches she sold, was a reminder. Every step toward your truth creates ripples, touching lives in ways you may never fully know. So what ripple will you create? What choice, however small, can you make today to honor your truth? Share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and let's keep the conversation alive. Your courage, your voice, can inspire a world ready to bloom.